Big Kel
Kel
and Kahuna
and Kahuna
podcast.
podcast. Mwah. For sure.
Hey,
Okay, welcome back. Episode 4 of Big Kel and
Kahuna.
I'm Kelly.
And I'm Alec.
All right, so before we start, we'll let Alec discuss a little bit about our mishap. Today, as we sit, is Monday. We do our recordings normally on Saturday and we post on Thursday. This is a re-recording.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of trouble. Go
So,
ahead.
Yeah, let me speak my piece. So, if you notice, you hesitated a little bit before you said 4. That's because on Saturday, that was the first time attempting to film this podcast episode. About 10 seconds in, the audio recorder, or 10 minutes in, the audio recorder crashed. So I thought, all right, no big deal. We'll just make a cut. So we started everything up again. Another 10 minutes goes by, another crash. At this time, I am pretty upset, but I figured out the audio is going for about 20 minutes, so now we're 40 minutes in, and then the camera dies because between the cuts, we had to take a phone call and do some housekeeping items. So we had 2 crashes, we had the camera die, and then after about 45 minutes of charging the camera and getting ready to go, I broke one of the gentleman agreement rules we had at the beginning of the first episode, which I won't go into detail in. So the episode was going to be titled Episode 4 Calamity. But when I got home,
It was a big calamity.
because it was a very tumultuous episode, but when I got home, I realized the first 2 audio segments were not there.
Right.
Because when it crashed, it didn't save them. So all I had was half of a podcast, and I said, man, so I called you, and I said, all right, guess I'll be over there today.
Yeah.
So here I am.
So this goes back to what we talked about before. We really need a producer. So I'll be reaching out to the community college folks again this week to see if somebody wants to work with us.
But it also
Hey,
shows you
hey.
how dedicated we are to all tens of you out there.
You got foam on
I
your
got
beard.
foam on my beard.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So with that said, we'll go right on into the show, and we will start as we normally do with
We have a recap.
Yeah.
That's right. I thought you were going right into current affairs. But
Well, we
okay.
start with a recap, right?
So the recap is when we were talking about that Formula One driver whose car split in half, I thought it was not Kimi Räikkönen, but Nico Hülkenberg. Turns out, you're right. It was a Frenchman, you
Yep,
said?
yep.
It was Roman Grosjean. But how crazy is it? If you haven't seen the video, watch the video. He was stuck in that car in a ball of fire.
Yeah, but let's start from the beginning. He comes around the corner. He hits that wall going, what, 150 miles an hour?
150, so it must have been a
150
5G,
plus.
5G impact minimum.
And he hit it so hard, the car broke in half.
Yeah, right behind him, it separated the side pods and the fuselage from him, and then everything just erupted.
Yeah, so it's worth watching. But it brings to the discussion about the safety standards they
Yeah.
have in F1.
Because nowadays, he was in there for 30 seconds. He got out. He had burns on his hands
And
and
his
his feet.
Yeah.
A similar crash.
Which would have been the gloves and the boots
Yeah.
where the body suit protected him.
Yeah, and part of that
30 seconds,
Yeah.
he was on
Part
fire.
of that for sure is credit where credit is due to the race assistants with the stewards.
They got there really
The
quick.
stewards got there really quick. They were hitting him with the fire extinguisher, but it was still on fire. But
But they got
that-
him out, and then they fired extinguisher as he
had,
rolled.
He had minor injuries.
Look, 5 years ago, he would have been dead
Well,
on impact.
look at what happened to Niki Lauda at the Nürburgring. And I understand you can't have a steward on every corner at the Nürburgring because it's over 100 corners and a 14-mile-long
Yeah.
track.
That's why they don't
But
do it anymore.
he goes wide into the wall, engulfs in flames, skids back onto the track. The first guy around crashes into him. The second driver gets out, and those two drivers pull him out of the car.
Right.
And then he had third-degree burns on the entirety of his body, 70% of it. But it also showed, once again, that movie Rush that we talked about.
Yeah, that's a great
how
movie.
You do that, and then the perseverance of that man to come back after 6 races.
Yeah.
And he was going to win if he didn't elect not to race in Japan in Suzuka because it was too rainy, because he was pushing for the race to be canceled. And James Hunt still had to get a certain place to win, but that also kicked off the whole Masked Bandit part of his career. So Niki Lauda, definitely in the top 5.
Oh, without a doubt.
F1 drivers.
Without a doubt.
Speaking of driving, one of my friends got pissed at me about the NASCAR comment.
Yeah, such is life.
Because I titled the episode NASCAR's for Troglodytes. So my friend called me, said, "Hey, I watch your podcast. What the hell is your problem, man? Why are you saying people who watch NASCAR are stupid?" I go, "Well, it's only left turns. I understand it's stock cars and there's a whole history behind it. It was cool when Jeff Gordon was racing and they were cheating because that team created that famous quote, 'If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.'"
No, that's the Raiders.
Well,
They said it too?
that team, that era of NASCAR, everybody was cheating.
They pushed the limits.
Everybody was cheating. Jeff Gordon had a 24 car with active suspension that they didn't find out for a couple races, but then once they found out, they banned the whole thing. But so I told him, F1 is far superior. Heck, even Formula E is superior. There was the championship yesterday, but I didn't watch it.
But if you like speed, it's got to be F1.
It's got to be F1. Well, NASCAR gets up to 200.
Yeah, but
Formula
those are
One's
the high
like
banks.
180,
It's
but
an oval.
it's just a circle,
Yeah.
IndyCar is cool, but it's funny when Danica Patrick went in NASCAR and crashed out every third race. Other drivers were saying, "Why is she even here? What's happening?" She was the equivalent of Yuki Tsunoda, or no, who's that Russian kid? That Russian Mazepin. Nikita Mazepin.
Mazepin, but
Him
they
or
call him
Lance-
Mazepin because every race he would go.
Even one of
and
the-
Logan Sargent had a problem this year too.
Yeah, well, Lance Stroll is equivalent to him, but he's got daddy's money, so he can stay on track.
How much are those cars? About $1 million when they wreck them?
No.
How much are they?
5 to 10 million.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why Haas lost so much money, is because they would wreck a car every
yeah,
race.
and that's the danger. And you guys got to see this. There's 20 drivers.
Yeah.
There's 10 teams.
There's about to be 22 drivers and 11 teams now.
Okay. But with the 10 teams, you have the ones that are just bankrolled. Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull.
That's pretty much it.
McLaren, too.
Sometimes.
Yeah, not as much as those 3 because they have legacy. But then you got Williams, which was really big because James Hunt was there.
Yeah.
But that was 10, 20 years ago. There's a great documentary on the Williams founder and what they did. But these smaller teams like Williams and Haas who don't have a lot of cash.
They're liabilities.
And you start wrecking cars.
You're done.
You just can't buy a new one.
That's why that guy, from the TV show Drive to Survive, Gunter Steinberg,
Yeah.
that really rude guy, that's why they fired him, because they lost so much money because they kept wrecking the cars.
I'm sure he wasn't at fault, but he was one of
He's a media personality now.
but he's great on the Drive to whatever.
Survive.
His commentary. He's matter of fact, and I like him.
I think he made the first 2 episodes,
Without a
first 2
doubt.
seasons.
He
was the
is
golden
he German? Austrian? Something like that?
akin to that.
But he's matter of fact in his responses, so you gotta love that.
But anyways, I told my friend to watch Rush, and then he did. He called me and he said, "Okay, you're right. I'm gonna start watching Formula One. When's the season start?"
Right.
And I let him know, and I go, "There's this Netflix show," and he's now currently watching the Netflix show and has since revoked his comment.
Right. Well, it just goes back to what we talked about before.
Can I say one thing about
sure.
Williams though? Williams in its heyday was the
bomb.
best.
Yeah.
Unparalleled. And that one car, it's the Elf something. I forgot what it was. Remember the car with the 4 front wheels and the 2 big back wheels? They make really good cars. They made that one. In the 70s or the 80s, they made a car with active suspension.
Wow.
It was so good, Dad. The drivers didn't have to lift their foot off of the acceleration or even turn that much to hit they didn't have to hit the driving line.
Right.
So that got banned halfway through. That's the shame about motorsports. If you have an ingenious
innovation, yeah.
the other teams will protest like little babies, and you'll get it banned. Lewis Hamilton had something in his car. Well, down the straights, he would move his thumb from a hole so there would be more airflow and he would get a higher top speed. He also had something in his car where he could adjust how close the steering wheel was to him. I think it had something to do with some sort of active suspension, because when you set up those cars, when you go to qualifying, they're under something called parc fermé conditions, which means you can't change anything about the car's setup from that point till the end of the race.
From qualifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why they had this little trick, or the trick with the thumb. So it's crazy the extents that, the lengths that these people go to shave off a 10th or a 100th of a second.
Look,
but
man.
I'll say this last thing about NASCAR. That guy, Ross Chastain or whatever, that was going into the playoffs and he rode the wall and picked up 4 places. Did you ever see that?
No, I haven't.
I'll have to show you that after this. Ross Chastain, I think is his name. They banned that move after he did it too.
Well, listen, look, make sure people understand, although we're Formula One fans, we have total respect for the NASCAR drivers and any auto race driving sport, because it's difficult, it's hard, and you have to be there.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, they do all those quality checks to ensure there's an even playing field.
Right.
But if you can make up a half a second a lap on 60 laps.
That's 25 seconds. That's 30 seconds.
30 seconds is the difference sometimes from first to 10th.
Yeah.
After, how long are the races? 150 miles?
40 to 60 laps on a 1.5 to 2.5 mile track for the most part.
But they're moving, so it's the same thing, and it's the same thing like swimmers. They, the different bodysuits they wear give them less drag. That's why everybody's shaving themselves and they're wearing caps and goggles. It makes a difference. A couple tenths of a second. Look at the swimmers; they win races by 100th of a second, 200, and that makes the difference.
Well, that's why when I was a state swimmer in high school, they banned those
full body
hydrophobic bodysuits for men. Women could still use them, but they can't. They used to have the arms go to here and the legs go to right above the knee. But I'll say this one last thing, and then we can move on to current affairs. I'm willing to argue there is a time in racing that is better than Formula One now, and arguably maybe as cool as Formula One in its heyday.
In the 80s?
No, Group B.
What's Group B?
Group B rally. Back in the 90s or 2000s when there were no rules. Group B
road rally races.
Yeah, Group B, there was no regulations on your car.
Yeah.
So it was not an even playing field. The only way you could get in is you had to have your car have, I think, 100 production units. So companies will make cars specific to Group B.
Yeah, of course.
Kit them out, sell like 100 of the stock ones. And it was some of the craziest racing. And you see the needle's edge, or what's the expression of the whatever's edge?
You got it right.
Of how close
Razor's edge
of how close these spectators get to the cars,
drifting
around dirt corners, and they have to jump out of the way at the end. It's mind-blowing.
Right. So NASCAR used to have an expression, I'm gonna get this wrong, but it's you watch the race on Saturday or Sunday, whatever it is, and you go to the dealership on Monday. They did the same thing. It had to be a production car. That's why the Daytona
500.
Well, not Daytona 500, but the oh my goodness.
Oh, the Daytona with the wing.
With the wing.
Not the Roadrunner.
Yeah, it's the Roadrunner wing. And the unfortunate part, those cars go for $250,000 to $500,000 now.
Especially with the little Berg Roadrunner on the side.
Yeah, but when they came out, they were having a hard time selling some of those, and they sold a bunch of them. They would take the wings off, and they sold them because nobody wanted the wings. But they didn't know the value then. So that's interesting. Now, when I was younger, the two things that I liked watching were the Paris to Dakar rally race.
That's cool.
Because they have open categories. Same thing as Le Mans, right?
Yeah, Le Mans has hyper, super.
So you have that, and they all race together. And then the other one
Can I guess what the second one is?
What?
The Isle of Man TT.
I love it, man. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
That's a great documentary.
Probably the most dangerous road race.
Nowadays.
And it's on motorcycles.
Nowadays.
Yeah, well, even in the older times.
Well, because in the 70s,
people
Formula
were
One
dying
drivers
all the time.
2 Formula One drivers would die a season. But you're right. This Isle of Man, at least one person dies every year.
Man, those boys are on those bikes,
'Cause
and they're
they're-
moving 150 plus.
They're in an island off of Britain or
Isle of Man.
Scotland.
It's Isle of Man.
Yeah, but they're on hills.
Yeah,
And
oh
if
no,
they-
it is a full road race. You're coming around
Yeah.
a blind curve
Yep.
going 125 miles
and if
an
you
hour.
mess up that curve, you're falling 300 feet.
Either that or you're running into people or running into a tree. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
So if you want some heavy excitement, that's the race you watch. Okay, so let's go on to the current affairs. So today is Monday. We sit and we have to give recognition to the wildfires in California and the total devastation that's caused.
Yep.
And from my perspective, the total and utter failure of the governor and the mayor and the fire chief.
And all his cronies.
This nonsense should not have happened. Though there's Justine Bateman. She used to be on the show Family Ties with Michael J. Fox back in the 80s. She's 1 year older than me, and she is a staunch critic of the individuals I just mentioned. So listen to what she says. But
Didn't the person who is the head of the Department of Water Holding or whatever department deals with water management,
highest paid individual in the county.
she has like a $500K base salary, and with bonuses and overtime, she's at $900K?
Yeah, they put a list
How?
out, the 10 most expensive civil servants in LA County, and they're all in the fire department or the water team. Now, hey, we'll give a little bit of credit. Our Canadian friends brought in some planes, and they're scooping out of the ocean, by the way.
Oh, so they're actually using the water right next to the state.
Well, you got to remember, though, you just have to have almost a clean glass surface. You can't have waves or you're not sucking anything up. And then they got all the helicopters out. Now, the one thing I find most agitating, shall we say, is that they sent 300 trucks down from Oregon to help out with the fires.
Filled with water?
No, the fire trucks. On the way, they made them, the state of California made them stop in Sacramento and get emissions checks and inspections to make sure the vehicles were roadworthy.
Oh, shut up.
Early reports say they turned some vehicles away. Catch this, and I hope this is not true, but we will double check and we'll bring it up next episode. They turned a handful of vehicles away because, get ready to catch this, they didn't pass California emissions. Now remember, the city's burning down.
I don't think
and
this-
there's smoke everywhere,
That-
and they turned them away because they didn't pass emissions.
I don't think the city passes emissions at this point.
No, it doesn't. And that's how crazy and legalistic you can be. Look, come on.
We'll
That-
talk
that
about
makes no
about
sense.
police and regulations later, but this is what happens when you have too many laws.
Too many bureaucrats.
Yeah,
And
too many
and,
pencil pushers.
and as we said on last episode,
Elon Musk, I can't wait for Doge.
well, he actually sent a bunch of trucks, maybe because he can't sell them, and his Starlink.
Oh, he sent
and-
his Cybertrucks?
Yeah, Cybertrucks and Starlink came to help yesterday. But it's amazing to me, especially in California. We talked about this. If they were their own economy, they'd be the 5th richest economy in the whole world. Instead, they're with us, and the U.S. is the richest. But with all those resources and capability, how this happens, how the devastation, and the other thing that there's got to do
Fumble
some
of all
research.
fumbles.
Yeah, the other people are do some research on, because it's out there all over the place, is that supposedly a whole bunch of homeowners had their insurance canceled last month for fire.
Yeah, a bunch of people had their fire insurance quietly removed from their plans.
And that's criminal. So somebody should take a look at
Speaking
that.
of criminal,
Hold on
there's
a second. But before we get there, listen. Firefighters
Yeah.
are some of the toughest people. And you know, they said 1/3 of the firefighters are from that show we would watch.
Cal Fire?
Cal Fire. They're inmates, and they said they're paying them $5
So
to
now I have
$8 a day.
Now I have two things I want to say real quick
So go ahead.
before we praise them. But Cal Fire, you would think they have helicopters capable of picking up water
They
and
do.
dumping it.
They do. But they don't have enough, and the fires
What's
are
the
too
problem
expansive.
with salinated water? It will still
Nothing.
put out the fire.
No, it is. It's not the problem, Alec. They don't have enough helicopters and enough planes. That's why the planes came down. And you got to run the water drops or the fire retardant, which is that red dye that they push out.
So they need more.
And I told you last week, and I wanted to bring it up. You have a cousin who's a fire jumper. Firemen, firewomen, you guys are the best. Fire jumpers, who just pop out of the plane.
Paratroopers, but for fire.
Oh my goodness gracious! Those are some of the bravest individuals I've seen, and your cousin's one of them. He was one of them. I don't know if he still is, but those individuals. And I told you last time, and I'll tell it to everybody here. And I already forgot the name of it, but I told you to watch that one with Josh Brolin and that other cat,
Miles Teller.
Miles Teller. They have a good firefighter movie with those guys.
Let me say,
and it's a true story about a crew out of Arizona and what happened to them.
Let me say one thing, and then we'll praise them. This is kind of, it's not a conspiracy because it's true, but some guy went to Australia and bought a bunch of Australian eucalyptus trees to bring back to California.
Right.
And they gypped him because they don't mature for 100 years. He bought them in 1920. Well, guess what? They've now matured, and their eucalyptus oil is highly flammable.
yeah.
So that's definitely contributing.
Well, that's
to
contributing,
this as well.
but it's very dry. It's a drought.
Yeah.
These are brush fires, and they'll just continue.
And we're
to
rambling,
go.
but the last thing I'll say though is because we mentioned it's criminal. There are roving gangs in rented SUVs marking and spotting houses for their people to come in and loot.
Yeah, supposedly there was an incident. I don't know what came of it, but there were two people that got picked up around Kamala Harris's home for trying to do the same thing. So it's a dangerous time, and our hearts and our thoughts are with
our
the
thoughts and
people
prayers
in
are
Southern
are
California.
With them. We respect law enforcement. We respect public services. We respect the people who are boots on the ground doing stuff.
And anybody who puts their life at risk
Right.
for their fellow man
The
in an
military,
occupation.
police officers, firefighters, 99%
EMT, rescue.
99% of you are great. I just do not enjoy the overzealous police officers, but we'll get into that later. Real quick tangent about Kamala. Remember when that guy was driving on the wrong side of the road and came in contact with her motorcade? Didn't hit them, but drove right past her.
Oh, and
I just saw the Blue Cam YouTube video of it.
Yeah.
He was drunk like a skunk, and the Secret Service had to interview him and ask him if he was a part of any terrorist groups.
Well, listen, here's another thing that happened. There was somebody who was arrested last night, I think, maybe this morning, who had a flamethrower in a neighborhood, and he was lighting stuff up as an arsonist. And the neighbors saw it, and they called the cops, and they arrested him.
Was it one of those Elon Musk Boring Company flamethrowers, or was it a real one?
No, it was a real flamethrower. So, I mean, that just tells you how crazy this is and how crazy people are.
People are starting to get on. I think ever since COVID, people are becoming increasingly more unhinged.
Oh, without a doubt. And there's a lot of reasons.
And can we attribute that to social media? Can we attribute that to politics? We can
attribute it to 100 different things.
I think it's a multifaceted problem.
Of course it is. Today's world is not what it was 5 years ago.
If that cat jumps on my computer, I'm going to have to get up.
We'll be okay. He's fine. Now, the next thing we'll talk about real quick is just so we want to touch base. Two of the.
I don't want to mess with it.
Okay. Alex making an adjustment. One of our strays that we picked up, put him down. That's Indiana, named after, of course, the famous Indiana Jones' dog, because Indiana Jones was named after his dog. If you saw The Last Crusade, his father goes, "You took the dog's name? Indiana was his dog's name." So he took that when he was River Phoenix was playing it in The Last Crusade.
So is that
in
his
the beginning.
pseudonym? Is that not his real name?
Oh, I forgot what his name was in the series. It'll come to me.
Doesn't matter.
But that's what it was. So one of the things, or two of the things I like watching, well, actually three, and it has to do with Alexa listening to my conversations. I was talking to Alec that I got somehow in my feed all these First Amendment auditors.
Yeah.
I love watching these shows. And these are the fellas that go with their cameras and gals, and
It's mostly guys, though, because they're being overtly...
They're being a little dickish.
Yeah.
But they're making a point.
It's all legal.
And the point they're making is they film public areas, police, post offices, courthouses, whatever it is, from a public sidewalk or in the public. Yeah. And you would imagine how many times the cops come out there agitated and start pulling, asking for their license.
Like, this is private property.
Unfortunately, these guys know more of what the law is.
What do you mean, unfortunately?
Unfortunately for the police.
Oh, yeah.
Because more often than not, the cops look like morons.
They're befuddled by the end of it.
Well, no, because they won't give them their ID. They don't understand that it's freedom of First Amendment, freedom of speech,
Freedom of the press.
Usually they'll call a supervisor, and it's funny when the supervisor walks in and tells the fellow
Tells the cop
officers,
to back down.
Yeah, he's right. These guys are right, and it's the walk of shame.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, half the time, the cops are real dickheads, even beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the only other thing I'll say, is that there are these two or three guys that are in this law firm.
We're in the episode long enough. You can say their name.
Okay, and
We don't want to get demonetized, so we try not to curse in the first 15 minutes.
But it's funny. They're called the shut the fuck up guys. And they're lawyers, and they say whenever the cops talk to you, shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're referencing is the Fifth Amendment.
Yep.
Because the police, now there's a Supreme Court decision and interrogations and so forth that says they can lie, they can be deceitful to pull a
They're
confession.
legally allowed to lie that gets you
Yeah.
to confess.
So listen, when you're at a traffic stop or whatever it is, know your rights. Don't do their work for them. Know your Fifth Amendment rights. And the quick, simple, there's another guy, and the other lawyer guy is, and there are Fifth Amendment auditors
Yep.
who say, I don't answer questions.
And they're going to make you feel a little bit vulnerable and relaxed because they're going to act like
Yeah.
your friend.
Where'd you come from? Why are you in such a hurry?
What's going on, man?
Yeah.
How's it going? My name is Mike. I'm
Right.
officer this, blah, blah. They're trying to establish a rapport with you.
Yeah, so they could give you a ticket and
your
get you-
barriers go down and they can get everything they need from you and
so
just
don't.
screw you.
Understand your rights. Just understand what you should say and what you can't say and what you don't have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, if an officer ever asked to come into the house or to check your car, your answer is no.
No.
That's a Fourth
have a
Amendment
warrant?
issue for illegal search and
Yeah.
seizure. So don't give them access. It's the same thing, and a lot of people don't understand this. You are protected. Now, if you believe this, against vampires in your own residence.
Yeah, we did
because,
talk about-
and this was
'cause
from
you-
the Lost Boys. If you invite them across the threshold, the world's done for
That's
you.
effectively how the law is written.
Yeah, don't invite them across the
if
threshold.
you invite them into the threshold
You're
of your
screwed.
domicile, they can hit everything.
Yeah. So just be careful and know your rights.
So,
Now,
but having said that,
Yeah.
keep in mind
you do agitate.
you're going to agitate them, and things are going to escalate.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it all depends on how you interact with them. It could, depending on the cop that you're dealing with, but just know your rights, be respectful, be cordial. Remember, they are law enforcement and they owe your respect. But don't fall trap to something you don't have to.
If you're getting pulled over in the car, keep your hands in the steering wheel. If you want to be a real dick and mess with them, just have your hands up.
No,
and then
don't
they'll
do that.
say, "Put your hands down. I don't see you as a threat." But you mentioned earlier, answer the questions you have to answer. Unless you're detained or they have probable cause and detain you as a result of that, you don't have to answer
You
anything.
don't even have to answer questions if you're detained.
You don't
or
have
arrested.
to. You don't even
Get
have
your
well,
lawyer.
plead the fifth. You don't even have to roll your window down all the way. You can but that's really gonna piss them off if you just crack your window.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
really gonna
it's
piss
funny.
them off.
These Fifth Amendment guys are like, the officer says, "Put your window down." He goes, "Oh, I can hear you just fine."
Yeah.
Well,
But
I
all-
can't hear you, and he goes, "What? You're talking to me. How can you not hear me?"
All you have to do is crack your window, provide your license, insurance, and proof of registration,
And let them do their business.
and don't answer any questions. And they're gonna hit you with. If they were gonna hit you with something anyways, this is what they're gonna hit you with.
Yeah.
But if you engage with them, there is a possibility they'll hit you with more.
Yeah, and you know what? Don't do their work for them, and that's why you have the opportunity to go to trial, and then you can speak your case then. So just be aware of your
And
rights.
judges, from the experiences I've heard from my friends, if you show up to court, if you don't look like a hooligan, if you say you're sorry to the judge, the charge is going to get reduced 99% of the time,
I wouldn't go that far, but that goes back to what we talked
unless
about.
it's a DUI or something serious.
But that's what we talked about.
If it's a speeding 10 to 9, they're going to say failure to maintain consistent perception or whatever. I don't know the
yeah.
exact.
So let me say something.
But we're
real
also
quick.
not lawyers, so don't quote me
That's
on
right.
that.
So there's a disclaimer at the back. We're not lawyers. If you're not sure, talk to a professional. But just understand your rights, and we'll go from there. Now, speaking of rights, this is ironic.
First Amendment win.
This is the funniest thing I came across this weekend. As I told you before, if I watch news, I'll watch Fox, I'll watch Al Jazeera. One, not so much. or BBC because it gives you a good world perspective.
You know who's really good? Sky News Australia.
Okay. I'll have to take a look at it. But I do not watch MSNBC or CNN.
Clinton News Network.
Just because I can't handle that. But Grandma does. My mom does. And I was over with her this weekend, and I was watching, and she had on. Oh, I was talking with her in the background. She had a TV on, and that clown Ali Bell she was on, and they were going through this rant about how the new devil incarnate is Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg. Now remember,
Womp womp.
2 months ago, they loved him.
Yeah.
He was the greatest.
He was their golden boy.
But now he's in cahoots with Trump. He's trying to beat an FTC charge. He doesn't want to be rulers of monopoly and be broken up. So these are all the nonsense things he said. But what they did was they went to, what is it, Open Notes? What is
Community Notes.
Community Notes, just like X did when everybody gave Elon a bunch of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're doing the same thing. And my mom was like, it's not good, it's bad. It basically, following the talking points. And I said, well, I don't understand.
And then she started attacking his character.
Well, that's it. But that's what they were doing on the news. They said he was on Joe Rogan's show. He was evil incarnate and he was selling out. But here's the point I'm trying to make.
It is kind of funny, though. Now on meta platforms, Facebook and Instagram, you can refer to women as property, which they aren't. And you can refer to people with transgenderism as having mental illness, which I'm not going to go into a rabbit hole. But 30 years ago, transgenderism was referred to in the DSM-4 as gender dysmorphia, which is a medical mental illness.
It still is. But the point I'm trying to make is that this guy was no good. This guy was terrible. But before he was. Now, the part is, and I'll give the guy credit, when you put fact-checking system in, I'm okay with that. But you have to equally fact-check both sides.
It has to be unbiased.
It has to be unbiased. It can't be proportionally weighted heavily to one or the other. It can't be you even ignore or don't fact-check a bad fact. So when the system you put in place to do something for you fails, you got to kill the system and start again. So I will give Mark Zuckerberg, which I would never said this a year ago.
Yeah.
He is my hero of the week.
Are we doing hero of the week or goat of the week? Or G of the week?
Oh, what that means?
It could be greatest of the week. It could be gangster of the week.
Whatever. But Zuckerberg's the guy. But you start liking him now because he's doing UFC stuff and everything else.
I want to make 2 points. He's actually gotten cool these past 12 months because he's been doing BJJ. He no longer looks like an alien. He has a gold chain. He's been doing appearances ringside at UFC events. He challenged Elon to a fight, which was funny. He's been cozying up with Dana White to the point where Dana White is now on the board of Meta.
Good.
And Dana White's looking forward to that.
Look, I think diversity in anything is good. Yeah. And if they get different perspectives, I think that's great.
And he implemented community notes, even though 6 to 12 months ago he was haranguing Elon for having community notes. But community notes is great because no one's paid, no one can be bribed, no one's biased. It's a collection of responses to a post that amalgamate into a singular community note. My favorite community note, and I told you this at that Jewish deli we were at, was there was this Twitter or X account that was called, "Is Jimmy Carter Still Alive?" And so every day this account would just tweet once at around 8 a.m. Yes. Yes. So on the day of his death, they tweeted yes at 8 a.m. I think he died in the afternoon. So he tweeted yes. Community notes was simply no. And then the account replied to the community notes and just said, "Fuck."
Yeah, that's funny. All right. So what do we say? We go into our weekly discussion on a couple chapters in the book.
Sure. Let's talk about the 2 chapters you have for us.
All right. So the first one would be chapter 37, and it's entitled "The Bannister Effect." So,
not to be confused with the butterfly effect.
No, 2 wholly different things. But butterfly effect, and what's the other one? The Mandela effect.
Mandela effect.
Dude, that is wild. Following
the Bernstein
Mandela
Bears.
It's not the Bernstein.
It's the Berenstein.
Berenstein. I always thought it was the Bernstein.
The Monopoly guy doesn't have a monocle.
I thought he did.
Yeah.
And then the Fruit of the Loom, they said they had a picture where they didn't have the cornucopia stuff, but they did because I still have a T-shirt from like 25 years ago with
real wacky guys. I'm pretty sure things just changed throughout the years, but real wacky guys state that because of big events that have happened in our timeline.
Yes, a collective
The Mandela
conscious.
effect is proof that our timeline splits when big event happens.
That I
And
don't
that-
know.
It's a conspiracy, but that could be reason for parallel universes.
Yeah, when you talk about conspiracy, I keep getting in my feed
and the
this
multiverse.
crazy shit
the multiverse needs to die. The multiverse isn't fun
about
anymore.
the Tartarian Empire. Back in the 1800s, all these big buildings and everything. Take a look at that. That's the
All
strangest
right,
thing.
well, we'll talk about that later.
But I don't believe that. So we'll go back to the Bannister effect. So in 1954, Roger Bannister was the first man to run a sub 4-minute mile. 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds, I think it was. Before that, they said that, it's not physically possible for a human to do it. Their chest will explode. Their lungs can't handle it. All these reasons
yeah,
why I wasn't
doctors
able.
said their hearts would explode.
Yeah. So as soon as he did it, he broke that invisible barrier that nobody thought could happen.
Yeah.
And then
And
all of
the
a sudden,
announcers were saying this is never going to be broken, but what started to happen?
then all of a sudden, everybody started doing it.
I think
And
one guy broke it within a week.
I don't know if it was a week, but it was
least
relatively
a month.
close. But if you go and you pull college and even high school records, there had to have been over 25 to 50 high school kids that run under 4-minute miles now. So the world changes. The whole intent is you can get there. Just be patient, work and move forward, and don't be limited. And this goes back to self-limiting.
Don't belittle yourself now if it can't be done today. Time is your greatest ally.
Yes.
But
In
it's
everything.
also
It-
also bittersweet in the sense that we only have a limited amount of time.
Well,
on this earth.
it's an expiring resource, and it goes back to that dot map I was talking to you about. Peter Attia, who's one of the longevity guys, is talking about this poster where you get a block for every week of your life, and it starts at your birth, and then it goes to whatever you 75, 80, 85, whatever the longevity is, or even longer. But you want something realistic. And it comes already blacked out with what you have. So you have a visual representation of how much time you have left and how you need to get to stuff. So pay attention to that. What people thought could never happen happens all the time.
Yep.
It's the same thing with the long jump.
Well,
It's the same thing with the high
with
jump.
any sport, sure.
Before the Fosbury flop. That was when you started the high jump. Dick Fosbury did it, where he does it like they do now. You go backwards.
Yeah. and get the
Before that,
arch.
people had to do side hurtling. So he did that, and he changed everything. So
But
understand that.
Speaking of time plus, what is it? Time plus ingenuity equals innovation. You were the last generation to not grow up on the internet. When
That's
you
true.
were 12 years old, did you ever fathom the notion of a World Wide Web being possible?
Dude, I bought a Commodore 64 when I was 13, and for me, that was heaven. I
Yeah.
remember buying that with the floppy disks, playing the Winter Olympics on there and the Summer Olympics, writing it for reports. I would have had no comprehension. But this is how quick technology changes.
Well, it's
Same
exponential.
Same thing with health. Same thing with those longevity conversations. Same thing with technology. It is flipping quicker and quicker and
Exponential.
quicker.
That's why I'm worried about AGI. If we can control it, I'm cool. Artificial generalized intelligence. It's called the singularity event when the collective consciousness of AI surpasses the collective
Yeah,
consciousness
that's called
of humanity.
Skynet.
It's called singularity.
Skynet.
Skynet if it's not properly controlled. But I am very optimistic for the future, even the short future, because what was done in 10 years is now done in 1 year and will now be done in a month.
So what does
But
that tell you?
I'm optimistic because a lot of science fiction, or what used to be science fiction, is now nonfiction.
True. But what does that tell you? That tells you the world's changing quicker than we know it's coming. So get yourself prepared.
Yeah.
Get yourself
You need to-
educated. Be ready.
can't
And then
be-
you could take advantage and be on the
Right.
forefront.
You can't be stagnant. You need to be able to adapt. And that reminds me of something I saw on Instagram. A speedboat is safest at the dock, but that's not what it's made for.
Right.
A supercar is safest in your garage, but that's not what it's made for.
Yeah.
You are safest sitting on your couch.
Right.
But that's not what you're made for.
Humans
you
are
have
made
so
to
much
interact.
potential. You got to go for it.
Yeah.
Take risks.
So humans are made to
Even
interact.
if it's talking to a girl, who cares if she rejects you? I guarantee you, even if you look like Urkel, 1 out of 100 women is going to find you attractive. You just need to get over that fear of rejection, and you can't internalize it ahead of time. You can't psych yourself out. Going back to what we talked about last time, you have to be your biggest ally.
Absolutely. You can't get into negative self-talk. You have to be prepared. You have to understand. You don't want to have a bad perspective or I can't do it. Just challenge yourself. Move forward. And remember, if you leave, your mind's a great thing to have.
Yeah.
But if you let it run wild, it will deceive
It can
you.
be your greatest ally or your biggest enemy.
Yeah, but it's a tool for you. So
Yeah.
use your mind as an advantage.
Superman, it's your fortress of solitude.
Yeah. Well, that's for recharging. And that's
You
what
and
we
I
talked about.
are introverts. We have to expend effort to spend time with people. We're cool when we're at home recharging.
Yeah.
We love being alone with our thoughts. Some people don't.
That's true, but that's okay. But you got to be able to interact. So we're
Yeah.
closeted. We're right on, not closeted. Well, I guess we are. We're right on the edge of introvert to
can fake
extrovert.
it.
So you could do stuff.
That's another thing. Faking it seems as if it has a negative connotation and it's derogatory. But with any new hobby, any new routine, whether that be working out, any new job, any new social setting, fake it till you make it.
It works sometimes.
You might have imposter syndrome to begin with, or
That's
you might
bullshit.
have
That's
imposter
bullshit, though.
syndrome once you figure it out. But if you fake it till you make it, you will figure it out.
Yeah.
And you'll be amazing at whatever it is you're applying yourself to.
All right. So that goes.
He would give me shit because he would tell me to do the dog crap when I was a kid. And I would pick up 80% of it, and he would go outside and find 5 clubs.
And then we send him
And
back
he would
out.
go, Alec, you either do it right the first time or you don't do it at all.
No. You do it right the first time, or you continue to do
Well,
it
yeah.
till it gets done. And listen, when I used to do Six Sigma stuff as a master black belt, I'm here to tell you, most often people spend time reworking or doing it again or
Yep.
recreating. Just be cognizant, put your time in, get it done. So let's go to the next chapter real quick, chapter 39, which I've titled Living or Dying, Choosing Your Pain. There's a gentleman I listened to. Actually, I was listening a little bit to Tony Robbins on Chris Williamson's show today,
I used to
Modern Wisdom.
I used to think he was a hack, but after listening to him talk to Tucker Carlson, I respect him now.
Okay. One of his mentors is a fellow named Jim Rome, and he had an expression. We all suffer one of two things in life. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of regret weighs tons. So choose your pain. So understand where you want that pain. You want it to develop and move forward and keep working towards your future goal by understanding where you are in the present and not spending time in the past, or you can just regret what you're doing and you don't move forward. It goes back to one of the books we talked about before, which isn't on my book list this week. It'll probably be next week, and that's Zig Ziglar's See at the Top. He has an expression, don't get caught in a crouch. And that means when you're getting ready to jump, you squat down in a crouch and then you spring up. A lot of people, his reference is 90% of the people, Tony Robbins will tell you the same thing, they get caught in a crouch. They just never let go. And this is the one thing that I remember that resonates with me with Tony Robbins. He was talking to somebody about changing. And he goes, oh, it's difficult. He goes, no, it's not. Change happens that fast. Working up or deciding to change and working towards it takes longer for some people. And some people never get through that journey.
Yeah. So
be cognizant of
Let
that.
me make 3 quick points. First, about the change. Someone is not going to change unless they themselves are willing to change.
You have to have a reason.
Your point regarding choose your pain. The pain of discipline is temporary and results in
Well, it's a great investment.
It results in riches down the road.
Yes.
You're investing in yourself. The pain of regret
Is nasty.
results in you living in the past. And I'll say this and then I'll stop for this segment. There are 3 ways you can live your life. And 2 of them, unironically, are tied to mental illnesses. If you're thinking about the past all the time, that correlates with depression.
Yeah, I was.
If
hold on
you're
a second.
thinking
Hold on a
about
second.
it-
When I was talking with Tony, I listened to Tony Robbins and Chris today. he spent a lot of time and said most people worry about their past. They're not planning for the future and they're not living today.
Well, so here's the thing. So planning for the future is good. That wasn't one of my 3. If you're living in the past, you're most likely depressed. If you're worried about the future and you're not making plans,
Depressed.
you are anxious. You
Yeah,
have anxiety. But if you're living in the present, that's when you truly live your life.
Yeah.
Now you can ideally, at first you want to get to being able to live in the present. But ideally you want to be living in the present and couple that with planning for the future.
Right. So this goes back, guys, to what we were talking about before, is that as men, we have a tendency to ruminate on things. We have a tendency to think about things that have already gone on or waste our time and energy. We have to change our perspective, change our mind. If you're hanging around with people who don't lift you up or bring you up, listen to all these motivational guys.
Yeah, get rid of them. Let me say one thing. You are the amalgamation of the 5 people you spend your most time with. Sorry.
So you can't keep interrupting me. If you are, see, I don't remember what I was saying now.
You're spending time with people who aren't lifting
Yeah,
you
if
up.
they're not helping you, then discard them and find new friends, right? Everybody says don't tell people your plans, just let them see your accomplishments and your activities. Work towards where you need to be, get that support. You don't need to be in a negative environment. We do that enough to ourselves. You don't need your environment that way. So just a free conversation. Start working towards that. All right, so now we'll go on to...
Let's talk about golden tea.
Yeah, go ahead.
So...
Be cognizant of the...
I'm aware.
Yeah.
So golden tea, as you know, we talked about it last week. We played one game. I shot a 21 and he shot a minus 21. He shot a minus 20. This week we played 2 games. The first game...
11 and 8.
Yeah, the first game we were like minus 11 and minus 8, which we're beating ourselves up over that. But we were still number 1 and 2 on the leaderboard. But
I think it's because we had too many beers. Because the next game got worse.
Well, officer, I plead the 5th. But that next game, we were both having doggy doo-doo rounds. But you had a stellar shot. You want to talk about it?
No, I just had a hole in one, man. And then I got a little excited, and because we were watching, I was like, yeah,
he hit a hole in one.
And then
he jumps 2 feet in the air and goes, yeah, hole in one.
I can't jump 2 feet in my air.
A foot.
All I did is, I
He
can't
jumped.
even jump a foot. I put my hand up and went, yeah.
But I gave him a high five. Go ahead.
No. And there were some guys in the back who came up and wanted to know if we did. They
Hacksaw
actually
Jim Duggan.
clapped, and they were.
There were guys applauding you.
Yeah. So we came up and we talked and we found out there's a group of guys that gather at this little brewery on a Friday night and they play a little golden tea with each other and they have some beers. So we're going to try that out Friday night. We'll let you know how it goes.
And then he ended up watching us because we don't pay for clubs or balls or tees.
It's enjoyment.
It's just for fun. We play the $4 a person for 18 holes. We use the default equipment, and we still end up more off, like 80% of the time. One of us is number 1 on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
So
that's because most people don't know how to play.
That's a very
don't say
good
that
point.
We're good. Most of them are dog shit. And remember, there's like 20-some courses.
That's a very good point. Each of us have at least 100 rounds underneath our belt.
No.
50?
50.
50. But yeah, most people are drunk and do it like 1 or 2 times, and they don't know how to line anything up. It took him until 6 months ago where I showed him if you hold the right or the left, it does a fractional shift, as opposed to clicking it does a major shift. But if we're gonna do this league, I want your agreement. We got to spend no more than $20 on clubs, tees, and balls.
That's fine. So we'll give a recap on that on next broadcast.
Yes.
How it turned out. From there, we'll go to the college championship game next week. It's interesting to see Ohio State and Notre Dame.
Yep.
I'm taking Notre Dame
I
because I just don't want to see Ohio State win.
I think Ohio State fans are equivalent to Cowboys fans, so I'm taking Notre Dame.
Okay, we'll go from there. Now, remember, this was Saturday. We had all our projections in for the games, and I actually am 5-2, but I did not see the Texans blowing out the Chargers.
Yeah.
And my goodness gracious, I give Pittsburgh Steelers fans a lot of shit, but oh my goodness, how you guys imploded at the end of the year is horrific.
Oh,
you,
crash and
you
burn.
were 10-3, first place, you lose 4, you finish the season, and then you get your ass stomped. As what was Steve Austin said, I'm going to stomp a mud hole in you. They just got killed.
Who did they play?
The Ravens.
Well, you could say that Mike Tyson quote, the Ravens effed him till they loved him.
Is it? Yeah, but that's even better. Just so you know, Mike Tyson
He
did
scared
say,
the shit out of that reporter. He even had a conversation
Yeah.
with that reporter 15 years later, and they were buddy after he apologized.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he said, I almost peed my pants.
Yeah, but he was also talking about, I think it was Razor Ruddock or someone else. But the funniest version of that is when Key and Peele did that.
Oh, yeah.
That was the best, and they got married.
I'm going to show him, God, I am going
He
to.
wasn't speaking.
Oh, no, there's another
the
one I have to
boxing
show
one.
you.
Okay,
the
well,
boxing one.
You got to stay with the topic.
I thought I was
before
thinking of this
changing.
one. I will show you what
All
I'm
right.
talking about when we're done.
So
'cause
we
it's
talked
funny.
about betting on FanDuel. If FanDuel wants to sponsor, I put in a 12-leg parlay for $4. That would have paid $994.
Did you already lose it?
Well, I was rolling. I've got them all except for 3. And Justin Herbert with his 4 interceptions kind of screwed me because I thought I'd get a touchdown out of them, and I didn't. And I had Lamar Jackson throwing 225 yards. He didn't get it. I had their tight end, Mark Andrews, with a touchdown. They didn't get it. And why? Derrick Henry ran all over those
Guy's
Steelers.
a monster.
Why do you need to
Derrick
pass?
Henry's on the Ravens now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's big.
You didn't watch the game?
No, he was.
Oh.
I don't have cable.
Oh, he's been there this year. He was a man
'Cause
among boys.
He was a monster on the Titans, right?
Yeah, but he's been a monster this year, and he's exactly what they need. The Ravens are tough. Now that's going to be a good game next week with the Ravens and the Bills, and I'm going to love
Is it
watch.
at the Bills?
Yeah, they're the better
Oh, the
team.
Bills have advantage then.
Yeah, of course. It's
All
home
those
field.
idiots jumping through tables.
Yeah, the Bills Mafia. And then our Redskins win on a doink field goal as time expires, and we get to go find Detroit Lions.
Let's go. I think we'll beat Detroit.
Let's hope so, and we'll go from there. And then we had the opportunity to talk, and we put wagers on. There was a UFC free
Fight night.
event, Fight night on Saturday, and the main card were
We should
these.
talk about Fright Night next episode.
Okay, we'll put it on the list. The main card had Mackenzie Dern
and Amanda Ribas.
and Amanda Rivas, 2 really good female UFC fighters.
They're pretty too.
Well, that doesn't hurt, but man, can they can rock.
They can bang.
They can bang, and it was a good fight to
There-
watch.
I will admit there's egg on my face because I said I took Rebus because BJJ counters Dern's wrestling. Dern submitted Rebus with an armbar, so I was wrong.
You should have watched it. I don't know if you saw it.
I haven't,
at the
but I
end.
will. But now here's a question.
Hold on a second. She set her up perfectly. Listen to the announcers, how she moved, and she got her with like 3-4 seconds left in the 3rd round. And you see that elbow. I mean, that elbow was up here
Yeah,
because
she
she
should
got
have
her
tapped
good.
earlier. But
Now,
speaking of female UFC fighters,
that brings us to the next question.
what do you think your top 5?
Okay,
in
let me-
ascending order.
Okay, let me say that before you step on it.
Yeah, I will let you
like
say.
you did with the John Jones thing last time.
Sorry, I fucked that up.
Okay.
What's your ascending order?
All
So
right,
5 to 1.
So here are my top 5 female UFC fighters of all time. I will put Chris Cyborg at number 5.
Okay.
She's a beast. Now, she got rocked by Nunez, but she's still a beast, and she's done a lot for it. At number 4, I think I'm going to put Ronda Rousey. Now, I say that because in her prime, before she got rocked by Nunez and then Holly Holm, she was the bomb. She was the beast. Now, people said she was suspect because her stand-up game wasn't there. But for a 2-3 year period,
Dude, she would hit arm bars in 30 seconds.
yeah, she was the GOAT because she got that judo background.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm telling you. You guys got to wrestle, jiu-jitsu, judo, something like that. But she was a beast. Number 3, Thug Rose.
Thug Rose.
Rose Namajunas.
Prettiest bald woman I've ever seen.
She's not bald, crew cut. But she's a champ. Number 2, I'm going to put Amanda Nunez as number 2. She
I
was
see
a
where you're
2-time,
going.
and hopefully you see where I'm going. And number 1 for me is the Bullet, Shevchenko. I think she is the champ. You should watch the special. They did a special on her as well as they brought her through her career, and they talked about how their mother, they're from Kazakhstan, aren't they? Or Uzbekistan or something like that?
Some
One
country.
of the stands. But they talked about her and her sister, and and what they grew up.
I love when
and
she
what
does
did.
that Russian ballerina shit at
She's
the
a
end.
ballerina.
But I will say, she did lose to Nunez, right?
I don't care.
But it was at a catchweight.
It was a
Nunez
catchweight.
had an advantage.
And I tell you, they fought twice, but I thought that first fight was close, and I gave her the second fight.
Yeah.
And it didn't go her way. So that's my top 5.
That's your 5.
What's yours?
So I'm gonna put a dark horse at number 5.
Who?
Because I think
Don't say Holly Holm. Was that who you're gonna say?
No,
Okay.
no. I just don't like how Ronda Rousey is suing everyone for defamation nowadays and is crying on cable television.
Okay.
So number 5, I'm gonna go with Juliana Pena.
Okay. She's new and up and coming. I'll give her credit. She can bang.
Number 4.
She's a champion right now too.
Yep.
And she beat Nunez. She retired Nunez.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that Wei Lang Ji girl or whatever her name is top 5.
But she might be 6 or 7.
She's definitely 6. Number 4, I'm gonna go Cyborg.
Okay.
Number 3, I'm going to go Thug Rose.
Okay.
Number 2, I'm going to go Shevchenko.
Okay.
And number 1, I'm going to go Nunez.
Okay. Okay. Hey, we got the same but one.
Yeah.
And I could see if you wanted to pull Rousey and
It's
put that one
personal
in,
for
but-
me for Rousey, but Rousey was the Conor McGregor of female fighting at that time.
Yeah, she was
She put female UFC fighting on the map. So I'll give her credit for that.
without a doubt. And I think, and this goes back to the conversation we had about the men. I think she did more for female UFC fighters than Royce Gracie did for male UFC fighters.
I think she did as much for female UFC fighters as Conor McGregor did for male UFC fighters.
Yeah, I think.
Royce
maybe.
Gracie was too early.
Yeah.
It was UFC 1.
Right.
No one cared
No.
that some dude in pajamas was submitting people twice his size.
Well, I thought when I
Looking
watched
back at it, badass.
Yeah. But when I watched those first ones, I was of the impression if you're fighting with a gi on, you're cheating because you can choke out with a gi and hold with it if you know what to do, and if the other guy's not, you're in trouble.
Well,
so I didn't like that. That's why they stopped.
That's called
the gis.
that's called a Peruvian necktie. If you grab someone's gi like this, you can hit both sides and choke them out with their own gi.
Right. So that's why I'm glad they don't wear those anymore. So that's our top 5 female UFC
You know,
fighters.
back then you could soccer kick in the head and punch them in the nuts.
Yeah. When they were but now you can't because you can't have 3 points.
They brought back
4 points or 3 points is illegal.
but they brought back 6 to 12 or 12 to 6 elbows.
As it should be.
Yeah.
And
But dude, they used to
striking on the ground too.
Pulling hair back then was allowed. I think one of those first 5 events, some dude
Yeah,
pulled the
you
other
can't
guy
do that anymore.
by his hair.
Now here's the interesting rule.
Troy
a lot of people
Polamalu got
don't.
screwed by that.
You can pull hair in the NFL.
Yeah.
I've seen guys pulled down by their dreads.
Shit, man. Have you seen what happened to Troy Polamalu?
Yeah, he got rocked too when that happened. But we'll go from there and we'll move on. We still don't have a guest this week. We will work to get one next week. We will still continue to work. We're just trying to figure out who that is. So more to follow. And then we'll go into
movies of
the
books.
week. So my movie, and I never do one, and this is it. If you have not seen Godfather 1 or Godfather 2, you must watch them. If you can dedicate a good 6 hours to watch them back to back, you will not be disappointed.
I'm willing to say that Godfather 1 might be the best movie of all time, but it's 100% in the top 3 movies.
Without a doubt. And I still think Godfather 2 is a top 5 movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're both fantastic movies. Now, don't waste your time and watch Godfather 3.
That's horrendous.
That's terrible. But 1 and 2 are classics, and you got to watch them. What's yours?
I'll speed through mine. It's been 4 episodes. I got to give credit where credit is due. My favorite comedy of all time, Step Brothers. My first R-rated movie seen in a theater, I was, 11, 12?
Yeah.
I had never heard him laugh this hard. And I still haven't heard you laugh this hard.
Yeah.
And the quotability of that movie, especially with Prestige Worldwide and Boats and Hoes.
Right. Oh, and I told you about that clip I saw that Brennan Huff and Dale Doback and Snoop
John
Dogg.
C. Reilly and Will Ferrell.
Yeah, well, I know that. I'm just saying their characters' names because they were dressed as that. But they did that Boats and Hoes with Snoop Dogg at a concert.
That's
which,
so funny.
If you got to find that clip, it's hilarious. That is a great movie. We could quote 20, 30 different lines from it.
I can quote the whole movie in succession. I've seen that movie 30 times.
And you know what? For me, I like Wedding Crashers. It's up there. But I also like Dodgeball. A lot of people...
If you can dodge traffic, you could dodge a ball.
If you dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball, too.
You're as useful as a poopy-flavored lollipop. You wouldn't hit water if you fell out of a boat.
And he said he liked to eat. I drink my own urine because I like the taste.
Yeah. I drink my own urine. What? because it's sterile.
And I like the taste. Yeah, that was Rip Torn. So you got to watch that. That was on the old, shit, I forgot the TV show he was on, the talk show with, what's his name? Gary Shandling? Maybe Gary Shandling. But that's the old good series. And then we'll go with the books. For me, it was in the book I had, and I referenced it in the finance section, and it's The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a quick 100-page read. You can get it done in a couple hours, but it basically just gives you the structure that you want to build your finances around. Pay yourself first, understand your budget, plan for the future, just simple things. And if you read that, it's a decent story. Yours?
My favorite book, this was the book that I was reading on your back deck when I still lived with you and got through it in less than a week, is Alter Carbon. The synopsis of it is they're in the future, the distant future. And when you die, if you're rich enough, your consciousness gets transferred into another body. They call them suits. So this detective dies in the field. And his
Did they do a movie on this?
They did a Netflix show.
Is that Jude Law? What movie was Jude Law in where he was chasing, where they would implant your memory
Total
into a
Recall?
body? No.
I don't know.
That's Colin Farrell and Schwarzenegger.
Okay. Well, they have a Netflix show. I never got into it, but this book is phenomenal. And it's one of the rare instances where everyone thinks the book is usually better than the show.
It is.
Most often. I'm willing to argue one of the rare instances where the inverse of that is true is Dune, the new ones.
The newer ones, yeah.
Older ones sucked.
Well, because the special effects couldn't satisfy the book.
Which goes back to what we were talking about. With time, things that were impossible become possible. Right. But I tried reading Dune, and I got stuck up on how often they use that word hegemony.
Dude, man, I couldn't even get through the old movies. But the new ones I really like. But here's another thing.
So Alter Carbon's my book.
Perfect. An older movie, which is better than the newer remake, is Tron. So if you haven't seen the original one, I love it because that was one of my favorite video games when I was a teenager, and I like the movie. But that's what we got. All right, so now we're going to go into the last segment, which is Bitch of the Week. And for me, the number one candidate, there is no one even close, is Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is my Bitch of the Week for how he has mismanaged the state, and it is highlighted by the just nastiness of the government to have enough money and have enough resources and provide and protect. That is the basic thing the government should do, provide and protect, and they're not able to do it. Now, I'm not talking about providing for handout, but I'm providing essential services and protecting, and they're failing
Public
miserably,
services,
and it's on him.
So what's the point of paying taxes in California if they don't even provide for you?
Yeah, listen, man.
You wonder why all these people leave.
Yeah, it's more than that.
And when you leave, don't bring your voting history with you.
Listen, I don't want to get into politics, and I don't want to talk about what he's referencing. All I'm saying is that whole thing has been mismanaged, and it starts with the governor, and they should be ashamed of themselves for what they allowed happen in the community, and they should be held accountable. And yours?
I think we've alluded to our bitches of the week every episode, because mine is Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin.
Really?
Because he went from, as you said, 10-3 to a 5-row losing streak.
Yeah, they lost 4, and then they got mud hole stomped in them, and that's what it. Mud hole stomped them in the playoff game. Look, I like Mike Tomlin. He's a good coach,
person, but he screwed up.
But the problem is you don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
And you need another linebacker and a better safety. And I don't know what's going on with the receiver, George Pickens, but that guy's always got something to say. So I don't think he's like a junior Antonio Brown, so I don't expect him to be along too much longer. But the Steelers should have shown better. They should have shown better. And so I would agree. I don't know if I'd call him that, but I would call the whole organization that.
The whole organization with him as a footnote. But I think Mike Tomlin is a great coach. He's a good person. He's helped that team a lot. But this week in particular, he's kind of a bitch for how things turned out.
Listen.
The buck stops with the head coach.
Of course. Now, well, and the owner and the GM, but the head coach for sure. But this is one thing, and he's the second longest tenured coach with Mike Harbaugh. The thing I'll tell you is...
Jim Harbaugh?
Jim is in San Diego. His brother's in...
Jim Harbaugh has a brother?
He's a coach of the Ravens.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Dude, where you been for the last 20 years?
I thought the only brothers were the Grudens.
No, Jesus. So here's the point. So you Steeler fans, you could be disappointed with him, but listen, here's what I'm
Yeah, I
going to
don't
tell
care. You live in Pennsylvania.
Okay, here's what I'm going to tell you. Steeler fans are some of the most loyal football fans that are out there.
Cowboys
and
too.
you guys deserve better. Cowboys are bandwagoners.
That's true.
That's the
That's
difference.
true. That's true.
Because when they suck, you don't hear shit from a
No,
Cowboy
yeah.
fan. You always hear the Steeler fans, and they are loyal to that team, and they
Steelers, yeah.
develop. They are do better than
What
that.
about Philly? Philly's pretty loyal.
They are, but I don't like Philly because I'm a Redskin fan.
Touche.
But I am happy. So the Cowboys, they fired their coach today, or they let him go. Well, no, that's not good for us because we kind of like them there. They can't
he
win.
sucked.
Well, no, I think that whole system's screwed up too, and they got to change that team around.
Yeah.
And that comes from Jerry. So they got to figure that out. All right, so we're going to close and we're going to wrap.
And the red light is still on. The audio is recording. Give me a high five.
So we should be okay. I'm looking for a producer.
No jump cuts today, baby.
Send us a link. So we appreciate it, everybody, and thanks for your time. We'll see you next week.
Adios.
We're good.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll.
Disclaimer for Generations Unplugged with Big Kel and Kahuna. This is a podcast created for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views expressed in this podcast reflect the personal experiences and opinions of the hosts and guests. Topics like health, fitness, financial well-being, and personal development are discussed based on individual perspectives and are not intended as professional medical, financial, or psychological advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified professionals before making decisions related to health, lifestyle, or finances. Each person's journey is unique, and results may vary. The creators of Generations Unplugged disclaim any liability for actions taken based on the content of this podcast. Remember, informed decisions and expert guidance are key to building a fulfilling and balanced life.
Big Kel
Big Kel
and Kahuna
and Kahuna
podcast.
podcast. For sure.